Let's begin this mindful Pilates class standing up. Please have your ball, your long TheraBand, and your hand weights if you want to use them. Remember that you might want a pillow. We also may use a bolster or a folded blanket today because I am going to have you do some back strengthening work. So you could have those available as well if you want to go into this that work. Okay. And then those of you who haven't tried it, we are doing foam roller work on Fridays. So if you have a long 3-foot foam roller and you want to give that a try, then join us for the Friday class. Okay, so let your fingers and your hands shake. And I'm also going to give you a few announcements since I'm thinking about it at the beginning of the week. There is a class on feet on Zoom starting next Tuesday from 3 to 4 p.m. It'll be 2 weeks in a row. And we're going to look at the standing foot, how to strengthen it, how to loosen it up. Because a lot of people, and I was watching people up close and personal in this yoga retreat in France, a lot of people have really tight fascia in their feet. So how do we open the feet well? Because I think that's a big reason people have balance issues. Let your arms swing around your torso. If you don't twist, just let the arms go so that you traction the head of the arm bone. If you twist, let it be gentle at the beginning of the day. And your knees can bend and they can straighten. And just notice where you feel the twist in your body. You can begin to direct it a little bit up the spine. So anyway, I want to teach these foot workshops because I think we can be more conscious of strengthening and opening the feet and then moving on the feet, giving our feet a little TLC. And then Jill, you're my in-person contingent, but we are going to start mindful movement at Mountain Stream again Thursday evenings. And Miyu and I are having a relaxed and awake at the end of the month. So those are the other offerings besides class this month. All right, let's come into the twist. I just want to let you all know I'm so thankful to Amy and Chamba for hosting me for that yoga retreat. And I'm thankful to all of you for being patient with my absence. All right. Okay, let's step a little wider and let the arms sway side to side. And we're just kind of getting the fascia opening. Now, for Amy and Chamba, they're in France, so they've had a day. They've probably been on their feet doing different work. But some of us may not have gotten moving too much yet. So we're getting ourselves moving, and it never hurts. And then let's flow to one side and let the left arm open to the left and the right arm forward, and then flow the other way. You can stay on your feet or lift to a toe and point the foot, stretching the feet out. It's really important to keep that fascia moving. I like the Qigong statement, hinges don't rust if you use them. So let your wrists move a little bit. And as you point your toes, feel into the joints of the feet. And then come back to center and just sway a little back and forth. Let your knees bend and turn your feet out and let your hips open a little. Let's bring our hands to our hips and then down to the femur bone and stretch, tractioning the femur out of the hip. So some of you may be more like up here. Some of you may be able to open a little wider and just get the joints open. And then come back in. Keep there for a moment. Come into your mountain pose. I just need to mute everyone. Okay. And begin to march. And let's march. Heart held up. Notice if you have this tendency to overwork the arms so that you're swinging kind of harshly into the shoulder girdle. Instead, let it be gentle swinging of the arms, not swinging the head of the arm bone too far forward into the rotator cuff. Heart staying lifted, head resting back. And again, point your feet as you lift them off the ground And then open them up as you land. Tailbone earthward. You can tell I'm already thinking about feet. And as you march, think about lifting your low back rib ring away from your pelvis. This doesn't mean that you're working at 100% in this lift, that you're just aware of creating space in the low back. Space in the low back and a gentle lift to the heart. And the knees could lift just a little bit, or they can lift farther. If lifting the knees hunches you forward, then don't do it. Stay lower with the knees. Good. And then release yourself. And let's sway and in, and sway and in. Let the side leg now bend in the sway. Warming up our quads a little bit. And think of your banks of the river. Use those banks to push back in, to push back in, to push back in. Good. And come back to center. And let's lift our long TheraBand and take it up over our heads. Remember, you want it far enough back that when you press up into the TheraBand, you are lifting from behind the ears. Okay? And then root into your heels for a moment. Tailbone earthward, lift the low back rib ring. Rest your shoulder blades on the back and really lengthen into your TheraBand. So Amy and Chamba have their new TheraBands. Now take your hands wide like mine. Yeah, and then just let the hands rest away from the top of your head. So you put a little traction on the head, but not too much. You don't want a lot of pressure on the neck, just enough to press up into. And lift to one toe and release. And lift to the other toe and release. Now, can you lift to just the toe and root your tailbone earthward and lift your low rib ring? Really press up into the head and lift the heart. Good, George. Just lift the heart. Shoulder blades on your back body. Magnetize them onto the back to help you lift your heart. Now, those of you who feel like, yeah, I can lift a knee and still lift my low rib ring. This takes energy in along the front of your spine. Go ahead and try it. Beautiful, Ruth. Fluid breath. Lengthening up through the top of the head. Beautiful, Vicky. Keeping that length into the TheraBand. Really nice, Jill. I see your imaginary TheraBand right over the top of your head. Fluid breath. Nice, Kathy. And pause. So you can stay with those, or you can float to your toe. Now really root down into the standing leg and open the knee to the side. Can you stay long and tall up the spine and bring the knee back in? And open the knee and knee back in. Really tall through the spine. Open and in and step down. Lift to the other toe. Hug in the banks of your river. Open the knee and come back in. Open the knee, come back in. Beautiful. Open the knee, come back in, step down. Root your tailbone, lift the low rib ring. And you can either lift to the toe again or lift the knee. Now really stay long into your TheraBand, perhaps. The knee opens and closes and opens and closes. And one more time, opens and closes, step down. Root into your standing leg and lift the other knee. And open and close. You could be on your toe. Open and close. And open and close. And step down. Release your TheraBand for a moment. Root into the four corners of your feet. Lift your toes, lift your arches. Relax your toes. Root down into your outer and inner heel, your big toe and pinky ball mounds. And take your TheraBand around your low back rib ring. Bring the TheraBand forward. And your palms are up. Imagine that you're holding a platter. I imagine Amy holding a platter of beautiful French cheeses Reach your platter forward, root your tailbone, and breathe into the low back rib ring. So you keep your natural lumbar curve. You don't let the TheraBand pull your low rib ring forward. You resist that, but you don't flatten the lumbar spine either. We want to be conscious of this part of our back body because we lose balance oftentimes in the middle between the ribs and the hips. So lift your low rib ring and now let the base of your skull rest back. We also lose balance because we carry the head forward. Let the head rest back. And exhale, bring your elbows into your sides at the inseam of your shirt. And then inhale into the back ribs as you take the hands forward. Feel the resistance. And exhale, elbows in. And inhale forward, come to one toe. And exhale in. And inhale, other toe. And exhale in. Remember the banks of your river. Those will help your balance as well. Inhale, take the arms open. Exhale in. Inhale. Breathe into the low back ribs and keep going at your own breath pace. Perhaps you lift a knee and lift a knee. Still, the base of the skull and the low rib ring rest back. The tailbone roots. So really try to come into consciousness of your back body as you do this balance work. Great. You all look great. I'm warming up. And now lift to one toe, open the arms, feel into your low back rib ring and open the knee and close the knee and open and close. Really lengthen your spine. Open and close and step down. Lift to the other toe and open and close. Hug in the banks of your river. Standing glute really hugs in. Open and close. Lift your skull. Open and close and step down. Release your elbows. One more. Take the arms open. Breathe into your low rib ring and either lift your toe or lift your knee. And open. Now really hug in the bank of your standing river all the way up the side body. And bring the knee back in. And open and close and open and close and step down. Feel into the whole foot that you're going to stand on, opening up. Find the four corners and three arches. Hug in the banks of your river and lift. Lift the low rib ring. Lift the back base of the skull. Open and close. Open and close. And open and close. And step down. Release the TheraBand and roll your shoulders. So hopefully that helps you feeling more open. Now I am going to want us to find a wall, and I want us to do a little heart opening and side awareness myofascial work. So we are going to come back against the wall, the whole humerus bone, back into the wall, broad across the shoulder girdle, rooting your tailbone. If you don't have a wall, imagine it, I guess, or come onto your back and do this bridge prep on the floor. So let your head rest back. And again, root your tailbone, root your heels, lift your low rib ring. Now press the whole length of your humerus bone back. It doesn't have to be at 100% of effort. You don't want to work so hard that you strain your knees back in the joint. You want to be open across the front chest and able to root the tailbone. But we press the arms back to help us open the chest, to open the pec minor. And then we invite the breath into the whole circumference of the lowest ribs. And we see where can we relax even in the effort on the exhales. So maybe you're just working at 60% of effort. Maybe it's 70. Fluid breath. Right up into the heart center as you root the tailbone. And release. Turn so that one arm is against the wall and you're in your Tadasana position. And press that arm, so you're still in robot arms, press that arm into the wall. And notice how the foot that's towards the center of the room really grounds. Lift your toes, lift your arches, relax your toes. and connect the arm pressing into the wall's shoulder blade with the hip of the other leg, the opposite leg. Feel that myofascial sling across your back. Make sure you're not hyperextending knees. Now ground the foot closest to the wall. Root down through that heel and lengthen across to the opposite shoulder blade. And imagine you're pressing the arm that's towards the center of the room into another wall. Wake up both sets of myofascial slings. This is that construction X across the body that helps us with balance. And release. And roll your shoulders. And then come to the other side. Other arm into the wall. Both feet grounding. Press it first with just like 50% of effort. And then build the effort. Are you trying to see, Ruth? So I'm just standing tall and pressing this arm against the wall into the wall. And I feel the opposite leg ground. Okay? This is really important postural alignment work. Really nice posture, Amy. That's beautiful. Fluid breath. Pressing into the wall. Your arms can be bent and your hands forward, palm facing palm. That's it, Ruth. And press your left shoulder, because you're against the wall, into the wall, your left arm into the wall, and feel how your right foot activates. I want you to find that line from your shoulder blade against the wall to your buttock of the opposite leg, down into that heel. Beautiful, Vicky. Really nice opening across the chest. Yeah, good, Kathy. Rooting the tailbone, lift through your pelvic floor. Find the lift of that low rib ring and release. One more time. Take your back against the wall. Palms forward in your robot arms. Make sure your heels aren't too far back. Broad across your shoulder girdle. Press the arms back. Lift the heart center. Root the tail. Now come back into your three-dimensional breath. So find that place where you're not overworking, but you're still opening across the collarbones, strengthening the arms back onto the back body, gently hugging the banks of your river. Fluid breath. A lifted heart. And release. Okay, let's come back to the mat now. And let's try a little more work with balance before we come to the floor. Open your palms forward. Shoulder blades on the back body. Rest your head back. Root into one foot and lift the other foot into your kickstand position. Hug buttocks towards buttocks. It's a hug, not a grip. Root down to rise up and see if you can lift the toes. Use the shoulder blades on your back to help you balance over your hips. Fluid breath up the line of the spine all the way into the skull. And feel if the wake up we did is helping you find balance. If you'd like to go farther, bring the knee forward. Perhaps you can lift the knee, heart still lifted, shoulder blades on the back, and take the leg long. And release. And roll your shoulders. And palms forward, find the shoulder blades on your back. Broaden them. Root down from your buttocks into your heels. From one shoulder, connect to the opposite buttock and heel. From the other shoulder, opposite buttock and heel. And come into your kickstand. Banks of the river, hug in, see if you can lift your toes. Heart still lifting. Feel your back body, shoulder blades, buttocks, lifted low rib ring. See how much that back body can stabilize you. Bring the knee forward, and if you'd like, lift, and if you'd like, lengthen, and release, and roll the shoulders. Nice work, everyone. Okay, if you're going to use a pillow on the floor, bring it in. I usually do. And then bring it so that you can reach your ball, your bolster, your long TheraBand, and lay yourself down. And you may use a block instead of the ball. Come into your neutral spine. If you're using a pillow, make sure it doesn't press up too hard into your cervical spine. You want freedom in the cervical spine. Support for the head. And then feel into your lumbar curve. If you don't have a curve due to scoliosis, lift your pelvis up onto a blanket. Place your thumbs on your lowest ribs and your fingers on your hip pointers. This is your Pilates square. Now root your tailbone towards the ground and over accentuate your lumbar curve. Feel how you lengthen the square between your ribs and hip pointers. Now flatten your lumbar curve. Bring your hip pointers towards your low ribs. You're shortening the square. Now just let yourself roll a few times, feeling how much you can lengthen from rib to hip pointer and how much you can shorten from rib to hip pointer. We want to become aware of this mobility because it's due to this mobility we often lose balance and we can strain the spine. Come into your neutral lumbar curve. We want to maintain this square. Tap on your left low ribs with your thumb and now tap on your right hip pointer. Connect energy from your left ribs to your right hip pointer. Take the left ribs towards the right hip pointer. It's kind of like you're going to have to lift up the left shoulder and hip a little. And then release. And take the right ribs towards the left hip pointer. Feel how you're shortening across the square now at a diagonal. And then open it up. We also want to be aware of the balance there. Now, float one leg into your tabletop and float the other to join it. If you feel any strain in your low back here, then bring your feet back down and put a folded blanket or a block underneath your sacrum. If you're fine here, we'll begin our toe dips here. Open your arms, rest them on the floor, palms up. And toe dip one foot towards the floor and exhale up. And toe dip the other and exhale up. So we're all finding the best position for ourselves to work. Some of you need to be on a folded blanket, some up on a block here. And we're just doing regular toe dips. Now flex your foot and toe dip with the heel. Notice if your chin wants to jut towards the sky. If it does, draw it back down and lengthen the back of your neck. Fluid breath. Broad across your shoulder girdle, rest the head of your arm bones back. Now come up and hug the legs towards the middle and take your right leg out to the right like the page of a book. Don't open too far. Your work is to keep the square square. Exhale the leg back in. Open the left leg out to the left. Keep your square square and open and close the book. So more important than opening the leg out wide is to keep your square still. You may feel your shoulders work in the back. That's good. That's your myofascial slings at work. So move slowly and feel into the work your body's doing. In particular, try not to do overly large movements. You want to do a movement where you can sustain the square. That's going to help you build stability. And now hug your knees in, and you can do this with hands or without. Circle them apart and back together again. Good morning, hips. And take your circles the other way. So sometimes we slow the work down so that we revisit it and clarify. Good. Now draw one knee into the chest and lengthen the left leg back out. So you may be still up on your folded blanket. If you're on blocks, you can leave your hands on the floor, your arms down, okay? And switch legs, and switch legs, and switch. So we hug and hug and hug. Those of you without osteoporosis or a neck injury can lengthen through the back of the neck and lift the head, looking towards your inner thighs. This is single leg stretch. It's the first of your Pilates series of 5. These are great exercises to take with you when you travel to keep your core awake. Now rest the head back down and draw both knees in. Lift hands and feet straight up towards the sky and take your wrists away from your ankles. Keep your ankles glued together. The arms make a circle on the sky and they hug the knees into the chest. And then you can reach your wrists and your ankles out to your point of control. That point of control is where you don't lose your square. So if you go too low and too far, you'll probably back bend. Okay, so we want to keep the square intact, our ribs aware of their connection with our hip pointers, so we don't lengthen the sides of the waist too much. And we inhale out and we exhale in, and take a break whenever you need it. Inhale out and exhale in. Now, lift your right foot overhead and your left foot long, and pulse your scissor, and pulse your scissor. You could flex the feet if you want more of a stretch in the back myofascia. Pulse, 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 pulse. If you need to stretch your toes open, stretch across the metatarsal arch from big toe to pinky toe ball mound and floint your feet. Pulse, 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 and come back to midline and bend your knees and circle your knees towards yourself, apart and down the mat. Your arms can stay on the floor if you wish, and take the circles the other way, getting the synovial fluid moving in the hips and giving the core a little rest. Now come back to your tabletop. Broad across the shoulder, you can toe dip one foot at the time, or some of you, keeping the head of the arm bones resting back like you were pressing them back against the wall, you can toe dip both toes and exhale up and inhale and exhale. So you either do one leg or two. Try to keep your knee at a right angle. I see some of you doing this, where you're kind of kicking your buttock with your heel. Try to open from the hip, open from the hip. Then you get into your psoas. Open from the hip, open from the hip. And then come back up. Last one, float your hands behind your head. Pilates, this is called crisscross. In yoga bicycle. Exhale, lift your right elbow, lengthen the right leg. Rest your head back, long spine. And then switch. You're not jutting your chin towards the sky. You're lifting with your elbow and your shoulder blade. And you're reaching the elbow towards the sky so you don't over shorten the cross from rib to opposite hip pointer. We want to stay long in the spine while we work our obliques. So lift the elbow, lengthen the leg, lengthen the leg. Good morning, obliques. Rest your head back, long spacious spine, and come back to neutral. And float one foot to the floor and then the other. Press your pillow out from underneath your head. Bring your arms to your sides and remember the work you did on your wall. Broad across your collarbones, lift your pelvis into your bridge pose. Okay, this is the same work. So a lot of times in yoga, I see people push too hard into their elbows and the head of the arm bone up at the shoulder pops off the ground. Broad across your collarbones, rest the head of the arm bone down. We want to strengthen the back muscles. Now hug your sit bones towards each other and release. And hug and release and hug and release. Feel into your glutes. Notice if both sides are activating evenly. And if they're not, invite them to do so. They may not catch on for a while, but we invite even hug, sit bone to sit bone, and release. And hug and release. And one more. And release and lower your pelvis to the floor. Place your hands on your belly and breathe deep into the belly. So to really train a three-dimensional core to support the spine, we need three-dimensional breath. So try to breathe down into the hands and your belly. Let the hands be raised by the belly and stretch one away from the other. Relaxing on your exhale. Now, as the belly still rises, breathe into your side bodies. Stretch the side waists away from each other. Now, as you still breathe into your hands and your side waist, also breathe into your low back. Let the low back expand towards the floor. Good. Now bring in your TheraBand and bring it up over the ball of your foot. One foot can still be bent, leg on the floor. The arms are on the floor, the head of the arm bones resting back, the whole humerus length on the floor, and pendulum your leg. Now try to feel for the femur bone moving in your hip socket without your pelvis going along for the ride, without flattening your lumbar spine. You're getting the synovial fluid flowing by rocking the leg and the pelvis, but we don't want that pelvis to be always hitched to the lumbar spine. So now lift the leg up and lengthen the other leg out, and take your lifted foot across towards the opposite side body just a little bit, and then sway it out to the other side. So across to the big toe side, and then out to the pinky toe side. Now feel into keeping your shoulders broad and grounded as the leg moves back and forth side to side. Feel into how the weight shifts across your sacrum, and let the buttocks also be wide on the floor and helping you ground to stabilize for the moving leg. Right here, breathe into your low back rib ring. Now, take the big toe across the body. Take the heel down towards the other foot and then out gently to the side in a circle. Remember, you can start the circle small, and as you get more comfortable with the work, open the circles bigger. But while you circle, think, as the leg comes out to its own side, ground the opposite shoulder. As the leg comes across the body, ground the opposite shoulder. Now come foot up to the top and circle out towards the pinky toe first. Ground the opposite side body. We're stretching open the hip, but we're also strengthening the torso, strengthening our awareness of the myofascial chains. Come back to the top, reach higher on your TheraBand and bend the knee in towards your armpit. You can step the other foot back in if that's better in your low back. Half happy baby. If you have the flexibility, stretch the leg open straight, up, out to the side of your head. And then bend the knee again and bring the other foot into the TheraBand. Your first foot to the floor and pendulum the leg. Pendulum with your shoulders grounded, with your natural lumbar curve intact. You can still lengthen the penduluming leg out into its TheraBand. I don't know if that's a word, penduluming. Keep your shoulders grounding. Feel it into your pelvis, not following the leg, even if that means the pendulum is smaller. We're differentiating the femur bone and the hip socket. Very important work for a healthy low back. Now, lengthen your bent knee out and take the big toe of your lifted leg across the body and then pendulum it back out to the pinky toe side. This movement can be as little or as large as is comfortable for you. Keep your shoulders grounding. Breathe into your low rib ring. Even though the low rib ring isn't on the ground, we breathe into anchoring it down. It's like the boat is in the water above the anchor, right? So the anchor chain goes down to the earth from your low ribs. Fluid motion across the body, opening the hips. Work with your myofascial slings. Now come back in, take the toe to the top, go around to the opposite shoulder, opposite foot, and then out to the side. So we start a circle by crossing the body because it's easier to support the moving leg when it's across the body than it is when it's way out to the side. So we start always crossing the body first and then out to the pinky toe side. Stay aware of your shoulders, your long neck as we open the hips. Come to the top and take your circles the other way. Now, as your foot moves out to the pinky toe side, really gently ground your low ribs of the opposite side, your low back ribs. This doesn't mean you're coming out of your lumbar curve. It just means you're using the ribs as an anchor point. And one more circle. Come back up, reach up the TheraBand, bend the knee in towards your armpit, half happy baby. You can step the foot in if that's better for you. And if you have the flexibility, lengthen the leg. Three-dimensional breath. And then release into a bend and step down. And roll yourselves over onto your side. So we've strengthened the back in our bridges and in our work on the wall. Now, can you all still hear me? Yeah, okay. Now we're going to do our side planks. So start with your hips on the floor and rainbow up, and just think of lifting the lower side body up to lift the upper side body skyward, and rainbow over and release, and rainbow over and release. Now if this feels good and you want to go farther, press into your shins and lift the hip, and rainbow over and release. Now if this is hard on your shoulder, you can try it with a straight arm. Rainbow up and release. If that's still hard on your shoulder, you can come against the wall with your feet out farther and rainbow up and release. So do what's best for your body. Some of you, it might be better to be up at the wall, still working that side body lift, okay? And then if you'd like to take a side plank, lengthen the lower leg, bring the top foot perpendicular to the body and lift up. And you could stack your feet. If you're at the wall, you can do the same work. Hand on the wall or forearm on the wall, depending on your wrists. You're leaned out a little bit and you can open into your side plank. This will help you strengthen the side body, whether you're on the wall or on the floor. And then let yourself lower down and let's take it to the other side. Okay, so side or wall, forearm or hand. We lift up the arm and we rainbow into the outer side body away from the wall or up towards the sky from the floor. And you can begin with just lifting the side body, and maybe that's the work you do today. Or some of you will want to lift the pelvis. Really breathe into the upper side body that you're stretching. Some of you will want to lift all the way up with a foot perpendicular to the body into your side plank and perhaps stack the feet. You can do this same work on the wall, forearm or hand against the wall, leaning into it from feet that are a ways out from the wall, still broad across your shoulder girdle. And then release and come onto your hands and knees. Okay, I'd like everybody to have a block so we can do a little multifidi strengthening today. Bring your block underneath your left shin. And if coming onto your hands is hard, feel free to come onto forearms on a footstool. Okay. And hover your other leg next to the shin on the block and lower that shin towards the floor and lift it up so your pelvis is in neutral. and lower and lift. This work is subtle. So don't think about making the biggest movement possible. Think more about strengthening the muscles of the vertebrae that are stable because your shin is on the block. Feel into that side of the body and how it's saying, okay, I'm going to stay strong for this other moving shin. And feel how there are muscles along your back, really close into the spine, that are stabilizing the vertebrae so that the floating hip can lower and lift. Try to feel for those muscles working to create stability. We're working to wake them up. Now come up, hovering shin next to shin, and open the shin out to the side like a dog at a fire hydrant. Don't feel like you have to open it too wide. We don't want to tip the vase of flowers off the sacrum. We just want to strengthen the hip and strengthen our stabilizers, our multifidi. So one more time out to the side, and then take the leg long behind you. Keep the knee bent and the foot towards the sky. I don't know if you can see my foot up here. Press your sole of your foot towards the ceiling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And lower the leg back to the floor. Come off the block and we'll switch sides. This is very important work, and sometimes it's not as easy for us to feel as some of the other work we do. So I really want you to try to center your concentration in your low back, in the side of the leg that's on the block. And as you lower the other leg, feel how there are some muscles that tighten up to stabilize your spine as you lower and lift. Your core activates as you lower and lift. Stay broad across the shoulders, long in the neck, your gaze down into the water as if you're snorkeling. Lower and lift. Feel your back body and come back up. Hovering shin next to shin, open the leg out like a dog at a fire hydrant, but stay strong in the banks of your river of the leg on the block. So don't let the hips sway way out to the side to lift the leg. Your leg may not lift as far, but you'll be working on your stabilizers. Oh, one more time. Come back in, knee bent, press the sole of the foot up towards the sky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and release. And let yourself down off the block. And turn to face the front of your mat. Open your knees wide and release back into a child's pose if that's accessible to you. If not, come into an inhaled cow and an exhaled cat. You can rest into your child's pose. Invite the breath deep into your low back. Fluid breath. And float back up onto hands and knees. And take your right hand forward and your left foot back. Broad across your shoulders and hips. Float the hand and foot up off the floor and float them back down. Try to keep that vase of flowers on your pelvis so you don't lift the foot too high. That's a good choice, Jill. Lift and lower. I'm going to come take a look. Beautiful, Sharon. Lifting up under the navel. Stay long in the spine. Tailbone towards the lifting heel. Good, Ruth. Fluid breath. And then one more time, lift up and pause. Now in the pause, can you relax the shoulders a little away from your ears? Yeah, good, Sharon. It's so fun to see you this way, Amy and Chamba. Lower back down and let's try the other side. Fluid breath, inhaling up. I like the stability and slow movement I'm seeing. Sharon, really nice control. Fluid breath. Strong across your shoulder girdle. Beautiful work, Jill. Fluid breath. Good, Vicky. Really nice balance of your pelvis, which is hard to do. Nice, Chamba. One more lift. And exhale to relax. Nice stable spine, George. And hold your lift for a moment and then release back down. And inhale a cow and exhale a cat. And pause in your cat. Breathe into your low back and slowly lower your sit bones towards your heels. And breathe into your low back some more. This is another way to become aware of your low back rib ring. Breathe into the low back. And then taking your hands as wide as your shoulders, engage your finger pads and roll up into a bent knee downward dog. And then walk your dog. One knee bends and then the other. Move over your toe box, stretching the toes. Strong in the arms, make sure you're not hyperextending at the elbows. Your head's a little lifted above your arms. Fluid breath. We're strengthening the bones of the upper body now. Pause in your dog, bend your knees, press into each finger pad, into your index finger knuckle pad. Lift the center palm, the carpal tunnel arch, lengthen through the spine to your sit bones, and then perhaps take your femur bones back in the pelvis. And then step your feet towards your hands and bend your knees. And float up, hands to the heart, Utkatasana, strengthening your quads. Long spine. Fluid breath into the back body. Gentle twist on the exhale to the left. Those of you who don't twist, just stay strong at the center. Exhale to one side and inhale to center and exhale to the other and inhale. Strong in the legs. Stable in the knees. Four corners of each foot grounding. And then release your hands and inhale, lift. Lift your heart, root your tailbone. Lift into a standing back bend. Exhale, hands through the heart. Relax the arms to your sides. Okay, so I wanted to come back up so we'd have a little time to do side lying leg work standing. So please bring your block in. I know some of you have been working on this, so I wanted to kind of review it for people. Let's put the block on the foot that's going to be closest to the wall, but make sure your arm has a little room from the wall. And the arm doesn't need to be behind you. It can be a little forward of you. You step up onto your block, and then you're just going to let the other leg dangle and swing. Just a gentle dangle and swing. Yeah, beautiful, Amy. Fluid breath. Really nice breath across your shoulder girdle, Vicky. And now, think to yourself, if I wanted to lift my swinging leg and knee up towards my chest, could I do that without cat curling my spine? How far could I lift the knee? And try it. Just lift the knee up and let it go. Lift it up and let it go. So what we're trying to let the body do in letting it go is traction the femur out of the hip socket so we don't have it too tightly hugged into the pelvis. So we lift the knee and then we let the leg bone, the heavy leg bones, go. But we don't lift the knee so high that we're cat curling the spine. And then release the leg down towards the earth. Make sure your pelvis is stable. You're not lowering the leg that's off the block too far. And lift the leg out to the side. And in. And out. Sorry, Sharon. She's having to turn because she's in a hallway. Lift out and in. Stay strong on your standing leg. Boy, that's going to really strengthen your gluteus medius. One more. And now kick forward and release. Now kick forward only as far as you can. Keep the heart lifted. Beautiful, Kathy. Now try not to let the sway come in the low back too much. Some of you are working from the back. I just want you to really find it from the pelvis. Now lift the leg, stretch it out. Bring the heel up to the back sit bone and bicycle, like you're riding a bike forward. Keep the heart lifted. Rest back into your shoulder blades. Beautiful. So these are just some of the side lying leg work that you can do standing and release. There are two really great benefits of this work on a block. The standing leg glute has to work really hard, which is good for your standing balance work. And the swinging leg gets to release out of the hip joint. So now step up onto the other block or the other side and just let the legs swing. I'm going to turn around so I can see you. Okay, so you're just letting the legs swing. And even if you just do this, you're strengthening the glute and you're swinging the other leg, trying to release the femur bone out of the hip joint. I think a lot of people get hip pain because everything gets tightly knotted up in there. It gets too compressed. Now, see if you can swing the knee forward and release. Swing and release. And in the release, it's okay if your pelvis moves a little and your spine back bends a little, because you're trying to open this psoas pathway, and its tightness may cause a little back bending. Lift and release, lift and release. One more. And then standing strong on your standing leg, pelvis pretty level, lift the leg out to the side and in. Now you're getting into working your abductors, A-B-D-U-C-T-E-R-S, abductors, that help you take the legs out to the side and back in. Boy, that standing leg glute med still working. One more. Now, kick forward, lengthen the leg, bring the heel to the sit bone, and come into your bicycles. Feel, am I bicycling from my low back? And if you are, try to move the femur bone in the hip socket without moving the low back as much. Strong on your standing leg glute. We're building our ability to balance. Fluid breath. Nice. And step down. And come just into a mountain pose for a moment. Feel it into your hips and legs. Feel into your neck and shoulders. And bring balance onto one leg and see, can you shake the other leg out? You can put your hand on something if you need to. And then stand on the other side and shake it out. Going for a walk after this class is probably good because you'll release some of that hip tension you might have gotten going. Let's lift your hand weights. If you don't have hand weights, it's fine to do this work without them. And float one arm up in front of you and release it down. Now stand strong on your heels without locking your knees. Your heart gently lifted, and you're just floating the arms up. You're not throwing the pelvis back in response. You're staying strong on your feet. And maybe you can lift both arms up in front of you, open them wide, and bring them down towards your hips. And we inhale and open and exhale. Lift and open and lower. Now feel into the four corners of your feet and three arches. Bring your consciousness up your shins to the knee and bring your femur bone right over the shins, right over the tibia. Feel up to your pelvis, sitting on top of your femurs, and your long spine in your broad open collarbones with your head and neck resting gently back. Now open up to the side, bring the palms in and lower. So we're circling the other way. Good, George. Fluid breath. Inhaling, closing, and exhaling. Fluid breath. I so love the kind of loving attention people give each other in this community. It's nice to see Jeannie and George facing each other and doing this work together. Fluid breath. Okay, so you could stay with just doing that arm work if you wanted to, or you can inhale, arms forward and come to one toe, lift the knee as you open the arms and step back down. Lift to the toe, lift the knee and lower. Inhale, open and exhale. Inhale, lift, and exhale. Staying strong on your feet, long in your spine. We move fluidly with the weights. We'll do one more set each side. And now just roll one shoulder and roll the other. So we use light hand weights in Pilates because part of what they're for is proprioception. They're for us to understand where we are in space. So now release into your mountain pose. And bring the hand weights forward for a minute. And curl your shoulders forward. And feel how the hand weights drag you forward. Okay, feel that? Now come back up. If our neutral has the head of our arm bones forward, and these muscles are tight and our head is forward, then those lines are going to drag us forward just like the hand weights. Now come back up and broaden across your collarbones. Find your shoulder blades on your back. Support the shoulder blades with your low rib ring and with your pelvis. Let your head rest back and feel how then you can start to open those drag lines. Fluid breath, brooding your tail, lift your low rib ring. Take your low rib ring back far enough that you have support for your shoulder blades and head. And float your arms out to the side and pause in your T. Lift the arms with muscles from beneath the arms instead of the upper shoulder and neck. And float to one toe. And float the knee. And tap 2, 3, 4, and 5, and step down. Lift to the other toe. Hug in the banks of your river and lift the knee. And tap 2, 3, 4, and 5, and lower down. Now take it out to the side. Lift your toe. You can stay here and just work on hugging in the banks of your river, or lift the knee and tap 2, 3, 4, and 5, and step back in. Lift to the other toe. Hug in the banks of your river, lengthen through the pelvic floor, and lift and tap 2, 3, 4, and 5, and release down and roll your shoulders and float your arms up and open into your goalposts and exhale. Hands together, gentle cat curl of the spine. Inhale, broad across the chest, lift the heart, and exhale, and inhale, exhale, and inhale. One more, and open, and press the arms up, lift to one toe, and release. Press the arms other toe, and release. Perhaps you lift the knee, and release. You could just do the arms. Fluid breath. Reach and reach. And see, can I look up as I do this work? Because that is one of the movements we lose as we age, the ability to look for the apples in the trees. Or let's say the apple blossoms this time of year. And come back down and release your arms and roll your shoulders. Put down your hand weights and step into your mountain pose. Find your shoulder blades on your back body, palms forward. Cross from one shoulder blade to the opposite buttock and heel, from the other shoulder blade to the opposite buttock and heel. Breathe into the heart. Step one foot into your kickstand and bring your arms to wherever you'd like them to be. You could be a weeping willow today, or a pine tree, or an oak. And as you're ready, lift your kickstand. Now let balance be fluid, and perhaps the limbs blow in the wind. Wherever they are, they just move gently in the breeze. And bring the knee forward and lift and lengthen and release. And roll your shoulders. And open your palms forward, shoulder blades on the back. Feel from your left shoulder blade to your right buttock, right heel. Feel from your right shoulder blade to left buttock, left heel. And float up into your kickstand. And lift the toes. And breathe three-dimensionally into the body as you raise your limbs and let them blow in the breeze. We want to work towards balance. We want to create stability, but we don't want to overwork. We want some freedom in the strength. The knee can come forward and perhaps lift. The leg may lengthen and release. Let's bring the heels together and lift and lower. And the arms can float as we lift and lower. And we inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. Now inhale, lift. Exhale, lower, knees can bend. Lift the heels and lengthen up. And lower the heels and knees can bend and lift the heels and lengthen up. And lower the heels, knees can bend and lift the heels. And inhale up. And exhale, hands to the heart. May we be more conscious, open, and have good supportive stability and strength in our bodies. Thank you. Okay. How'd that feel?